today. We're so glad to have everyone here today. We're excited to hear about the speaker that's today. Mr. Bill, if you'll lead us in pledge, we will, if everybody will stand, they can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Garen Carlin today, and he's going to talk about the cemetery laws. You can make that off.
Well, I've been looking forward to this little moment for a pretty good little while. I got a couple of pages here as far as the list of things I'm going to talk about. Projects involving the 2024 historical meeting. I just got a bunch of things here. It's a bunch of things, but I'm going to pop through them pretty quick, and I may end up coming back to 3 or 4 of them. First thing I'm going to mention is I've been working on a situation for the past couple of years now for a lady out of Corinth. It's involving the area down here on the south end behind White Oak Cemetery. I think she told me it's supposed to be it's either her mother's mother or her mother's grandmother. But there's another cemetery down south of White Oak. It's actually supposedly all the way down into the edge of the floodplain down there. It's called Mwen Cemetery, and this woman's great-great-grandmother or great-great-great-grandmother, I can't remember which she is Miss Janie McGuinn. So that cemetery is supposed to be down there. Of course, I have researched pretty much all the information that I can possibly get a hold of, including talking to other people. And I cannot manage to locate that cemetery, and just thinking possibly somebody may have heard of it over time. Of course, there was some documentation wrote by Harold Cox about it. And I wish I would have knew that when Harold was alive. Harold and my granddaddy was cousins. Harold used to come by and sit on the porch with us all the time. But I didn't never have no idea that he done anything involving the history field. But that cemetery is definitely down there. The documentation says, past White Oak Cemetery, go to the end of the road. And McGuinn Cemetery will be just beyond the end of the road into the wooded area. Now, knowing if the end of the road today was the end of the road when that document was wrote, who knows? But that's just something I was going to mention. But I told the girl I would, and I told her, who knows, somebody might know something. The next big story, my biggest story of all, nothing will never take the place of the history of Mary J. Kirk. It's just amazing how it come together. I done a video involving the historic Shiloh School and Mary Kirk just under 2 years ago. That video stayed on YouTube about 1.5 years, and Max Wilson right here, he happened to stumble across the video kind of by accident, and he noticed that I put there on the video including Mary Kirk, so he watched it and thought, well, I'll be. There's Mary, and they've been searching for her for 60 plus years, and of course I knew where she's at all my life, and my granddaddy used to go over there, and my granddaddy's brother right here, Donald Carlin, used to go over there, and I learned about Mary at a very, very young age. But anyway, I come together with Mary's family, and it was lined up a time, and they come up here, and it was 23 of us went out there all at the same time. 5 generations of her family went out there, and nobody had never been to her grave before. But just an amazing day, amazing adventure. And out of 560-something videos that I got on YouTube, there will never be an episode involving the history field that will take the place of the history of Mary J. Kirk. It's just amazing is all I'm saying. Another cemetery here that I'm going to mention, of course, a friend of mine that's been on a lot of videos, Ricky Hauser, been on a lot of episodes with me, asked me a while back, he said, have you been to every cemetery in McNairy County? I said, no. I said, I ain't been to every cemetery in McNairy County, but I said, I've been to a bunch of them. I've been to a bunch of them in a lot of other different places as well. But I visited one and done a 40-something minute YouTube episode this past week just barely over the county line at Pocahontas, down close to the Battle of Davis Bridge, called Mwen Cemetery. Absolutely amazing. It's one of the most unbelievable situations that I've ever seen. You walk off through the woods down there, the bushes is matted up and thick, you can't hardly see, and you just look off through the woods, you know. You just stop, look behind you, look to your right, look to your left, look in the far distance in the front of you. In every direction you look, there's some kind of another old marker. Well, down there on the back of it, there's a burial vault down there, a steel burial vault on top of the ground. I first heard about it when I was about 8 or 9 years old. My granddaddy used to work for the Parks and Conservation Department, and him and some co-workers of his was down there many years ago, and got to look in it. A story I heard from one of his co-workers is when the grave robbers cut a hole big enough to throw a grapefruit through in the end of the lid back years ago, because the old story was, as I recorded a guy telling the true story behind it the other day. The story got out that the woman was buried with a lot of silver and gold jewelry on, and that's one of the holes in that vault now. It was told that there was hair seen still growing after the death. One of my granddaddy's co-workers said that he looked in there and said she was buried with white stockings on. And of course, I run my camera up in the hole on the vault the other day and had a look inside. And you got that? I know them other boys said, yeah, I know what he's fixing to do. He's fixing to run that camera up in there. There's the inside of it. I suppose, and me and 2 or 3 other people has looked, I'm at the east end, up here, up there where her head would have been, and you see this stuff looking like stuff. I believe that's some kind of old feather, goose down stuff that would have been inside some kind of pillow, or whatever the upper part of her body or head would have been laying on. And these boards is either the dilapidated sides from an old coffin, or who knows, she may have just been laid on top of those boards. But supposedly her burial originally took place around Moscow, Tennessee. I'm thinking back around 1900, and she was moved to that cemetery close to the Davis Bridge battlefield for some reason. I do not know. But another friend of mine believes that burial probably would go all the way back to the Civil War. But one thing I did notice about this picture right here, when you look at it on the outside, it looks like that the vault's got a lid on it. From the outside, that's the way it looks. But when you look at it on the inside, all these creases across the top, it appears that whole vault is one solid piece of steel. Well, the question is in day one, when the burial took place, how did they get her into that vault? When supposedly they didn't run a welder back then, and there's no seams on it where it was put together. So how did her body get in it? Pop that other picture from standing by.
The 3 of you? The 3 of you?
Yeah. There it is. You can see the holes right here. You see, it's not a casket. It don't have a seam on it up here. I see, it kind of looks like it's got a lid on it right there, but it's all solid, one piece, and there's no name on it. But there was some sheriff back, Mr. Lee McAlpin here. He told a 5-minute story about it. There was some sheriff back years ago, come down there and jumped in a Jeep with somebody and went down there to look at it. And he contacted a commercial appeal out of Memphis, and they done an article on it. And I'm trying now to come up, hopefully, possibly come up with that commercial appeal article that they wrote on it. And I'm in the process of going through a former mayor in Hardeman County to find out who the sheriff would have been back then that came and looked at it. But just amazing. I heard about that for a long time. And of course, now Lee, when he told his story, he come down here. He said that some lady told him they was looking for some holly. week and a half before Christmas, and this lady told them they might find some holly, or I think holly berries or leaves or something within this area or vicinity. But when they got in there looking for that, is when they walked up on that vault. And of course, that's when the sheriff was called, and more questions was asked. But Lee said that day there was bones laying out here, where something had done brought some of her bones out that hole, and there was like an arm bone and a leg bone and several different bones, and there was a pine plank about 4 inches wide and 6 foot long it was one of those planks that I saw when I run up inside it. But of course I couldn't see no bones. Everything's gone now, no telling what's been in there. But I'm definitely going to try to find out some more information about it. I'm going to run over this burials on private property and regulations. This may not be all of them, but this is what I know or what I've learned. I'm going to run over these regulations right here, right quick, and I'm going to jump back to story involving Mary Kerr. It don't matter where a cemetery is in the state of Tennessee. And it may stand the same in some other states as it does in Tennessee. I don't know. It very well may, or be close. It don't matter if a grave is 2 or 3 miles back off in the woods. If you're a blood relative, you have a right to access. Can't nobody stop you, whether they want you to go or not. They can threaten to do whatever they want to do. There's a law in the state of Tennessee. It went through Tennessee Supreme Court in 1911 called the Walter Hines Law. And what it says is you can access from the nearest road during a reasonable time under a reasonable manner. Yes, it does recommend that you get permission from the landowner or whoever may have the land leased or something if it's a hunting club. But that's just that. Getting permission is more of like a courtesy thing. You don't have to. All right, now, back 3 years, it'd be 3 years ago, this next coming June. Me and my grandmother moved my granddaddy. He died in 2011. He stayed buried at Sulphur Springs for 10 years. We brought him up, moved him down to the home farm where I grew up, about nearly 4 miles away. He was the closest grave to the church at Sulphur Springs. You've never seen such a mess. I believe some kind of sewage waste drainage from that church got in his grave. His casket was full of water. It took the casket was set kind of a third of the weight, I guess the way to put that, up on the side, and there was a crack in one of the lower corners, and it took that casket about 20 minutes to drain out. And of course, Robert Shackford was there, and I asked him, I said, is that water squirting out from under the casket, or is it coming out of the casket? He said, it's coming out of it. But I never smelled like a scent in my life. But here's popping back to the regulations. When we moved him, we was told that a landowner could post a cemetery. No. Well, to anybody that's not family or blood relatives, yes. But like we moved him down there, well, that means any family member, no matter who they are, whether we like them or not, they can come there on the property at the house anytime they want to, you know. So we did not know that in the beginning. So now, yeah, we're having massive problems out of a family member coming down there, trying to take our land away from us when our name is on it, coming down there parking in the middle of the road, shining headlights up across the yard and the grave at night. So he's in the process of being moved again and done got all the questions answered. To move somebody like that is you have to contact a funeral director. They have to apply for a permit through the Department of Health. To do that, it takes about 2 days to get that permit. And if you're just moving them somewhere else, they move them based up on an affidavit, as they put it. That's to keep from getting a court order. If you're going to exhume a body and perform cremation on what remains may be left, yes, the state of Tennessee does recommend that you get a court order for that. You have to have an order if you're going to cremate any exhumed remains. Again, now jumping back to this involving Mary Kirk on these regulations. When this family got ready to go in to see Mary's grave, I kind of knew the people who was in this hunting club, and I contacted Mary's granddaughter, or one of them. Another one of them is right here in the red. They come from Boonville this morning, and the red right here on the front. So, but another one of her granddaughters, Tammy, I contacted her and I told her, I said, I'm going to just let you know, y'all coming up here is a great thing. Well, this could go down an easy road, peacefully and all, or this could go down a hard road. It could go down a hard road, it could go down a vicious road, and it could get ugly in a hurry. And I asked her, I said, if that happened, is that what y'all are prepared for? She didn't breathe a half a second. She said, absolutely. She said, my daddy is going to see his grandmother's grave one way or the other because he's never seen it before. And he's looked for it for 60 years or better. He got within 5 or 6 miles of it, and he said he ended up talking to somebody one time and said they heard something about a grave off in the woods somewhere or something, but nobody never knew nothing. And well, I had to end up contacting the historical commission at Nashville and letting them deal with the guy. This guy started telling me, no, they're not going. I'll take them all to court and get restraining orders against every one of them, and and I don't know what all is. So he said, you're going to have to tell the guy at Nashville to call me. I said, well, that's what I done. Got him called him. He said, their family, you got to let them go. So that's what happened. We went down the hard road with it. It didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be that way at all. It was all about a pyre thing. People just wanted pyre over it. And I've heard a couple of other stories, people going to Mary's grave over the years and run up on somebody hunting or something. Well, they told them that, I think it was that way with you, that y'all was trespassing and there was not a grave nowhere in the vicinity. Well, no grave in the vicinity was a cover-up. And of course, no wonder he left, because he knew it was wrong to tell you he was trespassing. So, what a lot of people don't understand is like 50 yards, like as far off in there as Mary's buried now, 50 yards from her grave during that time when she was buried, is where the house was. That far east of her grave. So, all right, and then law enforcement. Any of this stuff that I've told you about these cemetery laws and regulations, they ain't hardly no use asking any law enforcement, no matter who they are, because they don't know nothing. Because I've already done it. They don't know. I got one man at Nashville at the Historical Commission. His name is Graham Perry, and I got his information if you ever need to know anything. He's nothing but the historical cemetery's man. They can't no entrance or road or whatever to a cemetery or whatever be locked or be gated or cabled, anything with a lock on it. You can't do that. You can't lay stuff across the road, try to keep people out by not wanting to drive over it like a log or something like that. You can't block no entrance to a cemetery or whatever. I wrote up on some kids here back a couple of years ago. There's something that's interesting. I can't remember their names. I could show y'all 10,000 pictures. I just ain't got time to show all of them. I got the pictures. So there's some kids buried in the woods I believe it's just north of the old Hurricane School off of Winding Ridge Road. They're about 40, 50 yards from the road, buried right off in the hardwoods. You'd have to get out there and about trip over their headstone to ever find them or know they was there. Went to the Wolverton Cemetery. That's a really, really old, extremely old cemetery over there just northwest of Adamsville. I run across a man named Johnny Rezanuski fall before last, and he got permission from some folks for us to go in there, and I believe we had to cross 3 other landowners to get to it, and seen the graves of James and Agatha Wolverton from back in the late 1700s. Very interesting. There's a Jesse Moore buried there. He's related to Brandon Sesser up here. Sanders Cemetery search. I went on that little hunt with a man named John Mark Browder here last year. There's supposed to be a Sanders Cemetery number. I forget which one it was he was hunting. It's back up here off of supposed to have been off of Elsie Pounds Road, and we couldn't ever find it. So And I don't reckon nobody never got back in touch with the whereabouts of it or whatever. Jumping all the way down the other part of the county, Eureka Cemetery. There's a couple of Bromelos buried in the cemetery there at Eureka, but a guy named Mike Bromelo from Manchester, Tennessee, he called me last year and told me there's 2 Bromelo people lost in the edge of the woods across the road from Eureka. You know, that Carlin Road comes out right there. It comes out over at Powell Chapel in Hardeman County over there. And he said just as soon as you go out that road, opposite side of Ernie Kirk Road from Eureka, there's 2 graves lost out there. Soldier at Houston Cemetery, Archibald Houston. He's buried right in the middle of that cemetery. And I had a guy to come up here and he called me one day. Say he was a Texas Ranger. And I wasn't in the area. I didn't get to meet him. But he crossed a video that I done on that cemetery just by an accident, see. And a friend of mine lived across the road from it. Well, next thing I knew, he done drove up here, and he went over there to those people's house that I knew and asked them if they know anything about the cemetery. They said, no, we probably know somebody that does, though. So they called me, and she said, this guy come up, gets out of this truck, suit, big hat, tells her who he is. Well, I get on the phone with him, and well, that Revolutionary War soldier was his great-great-great-great-grandfather, and he didn't have no idea where he was buried until he crossed that video that I made. And he drove all the way up here from Dallas. But that was an amazing little story. John Thomas Gooch, he's buried in a little crypt on top of the ground at Sulphur Springs. He was like 20, I forget now, mid-20s when he died. He was living in Memphis at the time of his death. He was working as a carpenter and died from accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. He donated the property at the Mosses Creek Cemetery back in the day for a church to be built on. And that's been interesting. I've looked into some stuff about John Thomas Gooch, and I've enjoyed looking up some of that stuff. It's amazing what you can find out on some of these records. You pretty much don't have no trouble looking anybody up if the death was 1929 or after. That's when Gooch, I think, went over to Shackford. So Preston Shackford told me, I believe this way he put it, any death 1929 or after is supposed to be included with a death certificate. Mount Pleasant and Lawrence cemeteries over on the western side. Mount Pleasant, got a lot of history there. I got some family there. My granddaddy's grandparents on the Carlin side is there. A lot of people that I've heard of over the years is at Mount Pleasant. Interesting spot, holds a lot of history. And way on down past Mount Pleasant, there's an old cemetery back in there called Lawrence Cemetery. It just rolls the blocks running off through the woods. Another one of them amazing looking cases. Nethery Cemetery with Stephen Johnson. He says that he spotted a Union soldier in our photo the other day, standing in the woods watching us down there. Ricky Hauser found it right here. I set a little ghost in front of him there. Flip back to the other one. But he noticed that over there pretty quick. That's the area where Mary Kirk's at. Mary Kirk is going that road and going over there about a mile or so. Sears grave markers. A lot of people didn't know it. Sears used to put out a mailer on where you could order these old big grave markers. Back in the day, a lot of them was called zinkers. Because a lot of them were made out of zinc. A lot of them were hollow to cut down on weight. You could get them anywhere from $4 and something to $14.95 to $30-something to $70. And I'm talking about these big markers that's wide as this table up here and this tall. You could get them shipped in here about 3 weeks.
I'm just gonna tell you, that Netherly Cemetery, my great-great-granddaddy was buried there.
I know where that little block is there. Got the little
concrete around.
Yeah. I spoke with John Philip McNairy. He got in touch with me through YouTube here not too long ago. He said, I forget how he told me. He's in there with the judge. that McNairy County was named after. John Phillip, he's never been here, but he said it's definitely on his bucket list. He is in Santa Barbara, California. I drove around one day and I made pictures of a lot of stuff, and different things, kind of points of interest. Sent him because he never seen it here. Didn't even know what it looked like. He's a guy with big long white beard down about right here. John Phillip McNairy. And meeting folks in the field, it's been absolutely amazing over the years. All I know is my profession, how I first got into all this, is I've been in the game call business for many years. I had an uncle that was in it many years. I build, turkey calls. I do it for biggest part of my living nowadays, to say, and ship them all over the U.S. And we just now brought in international shipping. Looks like we're going to have to. But I kind of started these other different divisions. I got my historical division. I've got a rails division where I do nothing but stuff involving trains. I stay along the Memphis to Charleston rail line a whole lot, which is about 60 miles of it in Tennessee, down here south of us, including what runs through Shawally and Wolf Pen. But I just enjoy being involved with the trains. But it's amazing over the years in the historical field who I have met a field and talked to. I have talked to a lot of people out there that I never, ever, ever dreamed that I would talk to. And I've seen some cases and some stories come together and end like I never, ever expected. I've met some good people out there and had some good people to go out in the field with me, and my uncle here, Donald Carlin, and my grandmothers went out some with me, and I've enjoyed being out with Lee McAlpin, and Ricky Hauser, and John Mark Browder, and Johnny Rezanowski, and the family of Mary J. Kirk. I mean, again, that was just absolutely amazing. 23 of us, 5 generations of the family. I never ever seen a story in my life come together like that before. So that's pretty much what I've got, and I hope y'all have enjoyed listening. And if you ever need any help with any situation, as far as questions to be asked, I will certainly try to do what I possibly can to help anybody. I try to help anybody out there in the most positive way that I can. I was raised to look at things in the positive way and don't think in the negative direction all the time. I was exposed to a lot older things than I could have been when I was growing up. Anyway, I hope y'all have enjoyed watching on Moss's Creek Outdoors on YouTube. Until next time, I'm Garen Carlin, Moss's Creek Outdoors Historical Division, and I'll see you